Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a mega stupid Karen cut down an ancient oak tree on my property to build an illegal guest house without my permission. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The title story starts like this. Here in England, we like to look after our trees, and tree crime is taken very seriously, especially in the wake of climate awareness. You can get into a lot of trouble if you so much as forcibly remove a single branch of a protected tree. Even if the branch is deceased, you have to fork out a lot of money to get an arborist to assess and decide in a professional manner if a tree needs to be trimmed at all. I personally live out in the sticks of the rural Midlands of England, far enough south that not much of the countryside is given over to farming, and most landowners own a fair whack of land, a good couple acres or so. At the back of my property there's a rather large oak tree. This thing was huge and ancient. Not only could you build a tree house in there, but you could build a whole tree village. But we were never allowed because it was protected, given how old it was. When I was a kid, my family used to have garden parties by the oak tree at least twice a year. I believe at the time the oak tree was actually on my neighbor's property, but they were good people and they never had a problem with us throwing our garden parties under the oak tree. Time went by, I grew up, and sadly my parents passed away. They were old enough that it didn't come as a surprise when their health deteriorated, and it was a case of simply waiting for the day to come, though it never made it easy. In their will they left me the house and grounds, which was perfect because I was starting a brood of my own. I decided right away that I wanted to keep the annual tradition alive and always had my family and friends around for garden parties under the old oak tree. My neighbors were so pleased that the house was being kept in my family and that we would remain neighbors. Sadly, that didn't last long. They were ancient themselves, and a few years later they passed on too. I was shocked when they had left the grounds around the old oak tree to my family, extending the borders of my property a little bit. I was determined to carry on the tradition in their honor, as well as my parents. The winter season came around, the partying stopped for a little while, and Karen, along with her brood, moved into the now empty house. I did not hear anything of them for months. I saw the removal lorries, caught sight of a distant figure I thought might have been Karen, but beyond that I never spoke to her once. That was until the spring. I would hear rumors every time I went into the local pub, and the patrons seemed to only ever talk about how Karen kept making outrageous demands of the villagers. She had ordered Mike, the milkman, to always come to her house first so that she could get the freshest milk. Bill, the plumber, was expected to fix the pipes of the house, and when he refused to give Karen any kind of discount because they were neighbors, she kicked him out of the house and made threats of calling someone else to do his job. I don't think he was all too bothered about that. She expected Trevor to come around with his ride-on mower to mow her back garden just because her husband was too lazy to do it with a conventional mower. She never even offered to pay for petrol or anything. Karen had only been in the area for a few months and she was already getting on everyone's bad side. When the spring came, it was my turn. She came banging on my door one sunny Sunday afternoon, the first truly warm day we had in months. My kids were out the back playing with their school buddies. I answered the door to a rather red-faced and irate woman with proper big oversprayed hair and a face like a bulldog chewing a wasp. "Do you know your kids are playing around that big tree out back?" she screeches at me in her banshee wail. She didn't even bother to introduce herself or anything. So what? I say. If she was not gonna be polite, why would I? "It's dangerous. You need to tell them to stop." "No," I tell her. "They are kids. They can play where they want in my garden." "Well, I think you will find it is my garden. Tell them to stop or I will phone the police." "Go ahead," I tell her and close the door. I can hear her yelling to herself as I walk away. The police never did get called. They must have laughed at her when she called. It's not like kids climbing a tree is illegal, but with the way things are going in the UK, with health and safety going out of control, it would not surprise me if it was. Another couple months go by, the summer is almost upon us, and it was nearly time for the annual garden party. Karen comes around to knock on my door again. She looked a little less pissed off and more like she was in an undesirable area that she wanted to be out of as quick as possible. "I have some builders coming over to begin construction of a guest house. I would appreciate it if you kept your children away. I don't want them distracting the builders," she tells me all matter-of-factly. It was a fair request, though she was very rude about how she presented it. I said, "Sure, I will tell them to stay away." My second encounter with her was nowhere near as bad as the first, but what was to follow was gonna be by far my worst experience with Karen. So the builders came along with a huge amount of building supplies. I remember thinking that they must be building a whole mansion or something, but I didn't care so much about when she was doing until a couple weeks later when I'm chilling in the living room watching rugby, and I remember hearing building work and getting very irate because it was loud enough to disturb the game. When halftime came, I thought to myself that the sounds of construction I could hear sounded distinctly like a chainsaw or something. When I went out to the kitchen to make a cup of tea and peer out the back window, my eyes went wide and my jaw hit the floor. Karen had begun construction not only on my property, but right where the old oak tree sat, or used to sit, as more than half of it had been trimmed away already. I was furious. I stormed down the garden and asked the builders what they were doing. They told me that they needed to cut back the old oak tree to make room for the guest house, which was to set back up against the tree. Apparently, Karen thought it would give her guest house some sort of character to have a tree growing out the back of it. I get into it a fair bit with the builders, telling them that the tree and 20 meters around it was my property. After an hour, Karen comes out to join in the fray and add her weight to the argument. She must have some sort of sixth sense for dumb arguments. Seeing that I was greatly outnumbered, I had no choice but to retreat for now. She might have won that battle, but I knew I was gonna win the war, so there was no point in getting dragged down to her level. I of course called up my lawyer, and over the next couple weeks we made sure that my argument was airtight, bringing up property plans, making sure they were the updated versions to include the area of land I'd been given by my late neighbors, and we discovered something amazing. The old oak tree was protected. Any regular Joe would know that if they spent even just 5 minutes to make sure, but Karen clearly had not. By the time I get a court case together, Karen had already built half the house. The framework was up and the tree was a shadow of its former self. I would avenge the old oak tree and sue Karen into the ground. She literally had no case to make. We only spent a couple hours in court before the judge ruled that Karen had behaved maliciously. The judge fined her as if she had felled the tree entirely, being that there wasn't much of it left. He deemed it appropriate, and she was also fined for conducting the work without a license and ordered to replace all the trees she had destroyed. It was only one, but it was a big one. That was not the last of it either. The judge went on and I could not see any end to the list of charges the judge was bringing against her. My lawyer had done his job and then some. She was fined for building on someone else's property without their permission, fined for trespass and disregard for local horticulture. That was a new one on me. In the end, she had to pay out a whopping 90,000 British pounds, which is, by the way, around $115,000. Anyway, that was not the last of it either. I heard a rumor down the local that the construction company were also planning on suing her for some kind of mistreatment and misrepresentation. I cannot remember exactly what, but it was certainly something that could end in jail time for Karen. And yeah, ripe stars, I hope this bit of tree law certainly taught Karen a lesson, and I'm sure she will never mess with any trees again in the future. If you enjoy the tree law stories, then please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and maybe even leave a comment because that would help me tremendously. Thank you very much, and now let's move on to the petty revenge story. So I work as a handyman/builder. Today's job was dig up some turf from somebody's back garden and wheelbarrow it around to the front of the house, down the drive and into the skip across the road. While I was doing said job, another building company came to the house to take down an old pergola. They showed up in a pickup which they parked right across the entrance to the drive. I was wheeling some turf out as they arrived, so I asked the driver if he wouldn't mind pulling back a couple of foot so I could get past. Rather than just pulling back, he got out, looked at the front of his truck, shrugged and just said, "Nah, you got plenty of space, mate," and walked away to the house. Fair enough, I had space, although not exactly plenty, maybe 18 inches or so. I could squeeze through, but that didn't make him any less of an idiot who had made my life harder for no real reason. I could not be bothered to argue, so I just carried on. So here's where the revenge comes in. When I got back around to the back of the house, the builder and his mate were looking at the pergola. I heard him say to his mate, "Damn it, we left the ladders at the yard, didn't we?" I smiled, knowing I had not one but two ladders in the back of my van that would be perfect for the job. I would have happily lent them both, always happy to help a fellow tradesman, but not this guy. He could have easily helped me, but decided to be an idiot instead, so no letters for him. He did ask the homeowner if they had one, but he didn't. I got the feeling that he knew he had burned his bridges with me already because he did not ask me. So I spent the afternoon working while watching these guys trying to dismantle a pergola from ground level. I watched them jumping up and down, stretching up with their drills at arm's length. They tried standing on flower pots, they tried and failed. To actually climb up on the structure, they eventually settled on standing on his toolbox. I'm not sure the 8 inches or so lift they got from that was worth the bend it made in the lid, but it was at least enough to do the job. I guess they were desperate by that point. They were about 4 hours and 95% of the way into what should have been a maximum 2-hour job by the time I finished myself and made sure to leave my van doors open while I packed up so they could see the ladders in my van. I'm not sure they saw, but I hope they did. And the next one is a pro-revenge story. And please let me know in the comments whether you prefer pro-revenge or petty revenge. For me, I gotta say, I could not only read petty or only read pro-revenge stories, I always need this mix and variety. I lived on the end unit of a townhouse complex. When we first moved in, the back fence was gone. The super told us that it had blown down in a windstorm and they were going to replace it as soon as they can. Since this was an end unit, there was an extra little piece of grass on the side which we had to pay extra money a month for. It had a little fence with a gate that opened to the driveway. I noticed the gate was constantly left open. I assumed that the original lock was weak and not closing properly or something, so I replaced it. It did not help, so I put a padlock on it. I came home from work that day to find the whole lock broken off. It looked like the fence had been kicked in. I did not see anything stolen from the yard, not that they would have to kick in the fence to do so anyway, so I then asked my next door neighbor if they had seen anything. They said that they had seen my neighbors in behind us cutting through our yard. He had been complaining before about walking the 50 feet or so to go around the houses, and I guess the storm knocking the fence over was the perfect opportunity for him. I had never met this neighbor yet, so I decided to go with the more passive route. I bought some orange snow fence and a few no trespassing signs. But those were about as useless as spitting at a fire. They were torn down in a few days. So then I was out washing my car one day when I finally ran into my neighbor cutting through my yard. I tried to be polite. Me, hey, you're not really supposed to be cutting through my yard. Him, that's not your yard, that's common property. Me, okay, I understand the confusion. So we pay extra on the end unit for the little patch on the side. Him, no, we all get to the edge of our house. Anything else is just common area. I'm allowed to be here. Me, look, I don't want to have to call the cops or something. Just please stay off of our property and stop damaging my gate. He did not say anything more, just continued on his way, but that is when I started noticing garbage appearing all over my yard. Cigarette butts and empty cigarette packs, beer bottles and stuff that my wife nor I have never really used. So we knew it had to be him throwing stuff into our yard. I'd be standing at my back door and he would not even try to hide when he was cutting through anymore. He would be just looking up at me the whole time. I knew until the new fence went up that there was nothing I could really do. So cue the petty revenge. I had 2 guinea pigs and I would have to clean out their cage once a week or so. I used to scoop the poop and hay into the garbage, but I knew a better place to put it now. For the next few months, yeah, it took a while to get a new fence, I took the poop and I dumped it right in front of the gate. Dog poop or human poop could have worked, but the one nice thing about guinea pig poop is it just looks like mud, so he had no idea it was even there. For months he trudged through poop every time he cut through my yard. I heard him complain about the mud once, as he had just gotten new shoes. They finally got us the new fence and I saw the neighbor walking around one day and he gave me a dirty look like I had done something wrong. We still get the odd garbage thrown over the fence, but nothing worse than that. My wife and I turned the little side yard into a garden, always seemed to be nicely fertilized for some reason. And yeah, ripe stars, now we will move on to the Am I the A-hole story for today. When my mom died back in 2018, she left me and my siblings a decent chunk of money and her house. My siblings wanted to sell the house and split the money. I wanted to keep the house. It's a unique property with a pretty big lot in the middle of the city. The house is huge, it has a pretty awesome deck, and most importantly, it's not in an HOA. I had some sentimental attachment to it, but mostly I thought the house was better for my situation than a pile of cash. I asked them if I could buy them out. They were pretty excited about the idea, the house would stay in the family and they still get their cash. We got it appraised, hired an attorney and went through with it. My portion of the inheritance and a chunk of my own savings were enough to cover their shares. As soon as it was done, me and my then fiancé moved in. We saved a bunch on rent, the house was paid off, location was great, we were really happy with the house. My brother burned through the cash in 2 years, he fancied himself an influencer. He bought a Maserati for cash, went to expensive nightclubs, vacationed in exotic places. Good for him, but the money is gone. My sister and her husband bought a really expensive boat, I guess that's better, they did use it pretty often and my nephews love it. But from what I understand, her portion of the money is gone too. I got married and we had a son. We would host my siblings on holidays and the Christmas before the pandemic I started to notice it. They were making snide comments about how much the house must be worth now, and since 2018 we basically had an influx of people to my city. It's growing rapidly and the price of the house essentially tripled. We have had a bunch of all-cash offers on the house when we were not thinking of selling, but this year we decided to move. My wife was pregnant again and we were gonna relocate closer to her family. I then talked to my boss and he said the place we were moving to had an office I could commute to on the days I work in the office. So we put the house on the market, it sold pretty quickly and that's when the trouble started. Both of my siblings think that I owe it to them to split the profit I made, because it's supposedly only fair. We were in the middle of a move and house hunting in the new place, so I didn't really have time to go on about this. Well, it's been months and they have not stopped bothering about how I cheated them out of a portion of their inheritance and that I was being really selfish. They point out that the process of me buying them out was pretty smooth and we did not have any problems or hiccups. They did me a favor by not kicking up a fuss. Now they want to split the profit because it was their house too. This has become really toxic and most of my family is on their side. My mom's sister says it would have broken her heart to see her kids fight like this and I should split the money with my siblings. My dad's sister thinks I should buy them off so they shut up. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to split the money? And here, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here or not? I would say he definitely isn't, because he hasn't done anything wrong or illegal, but let me know what you think. Either way, a comment on Reddit said, "Not the a-hole, it's not your fault that the house is worth more now than when you bought out your siblings." I would point out that all three of you invested in your inheritance in different ways and yours is the only one that paid off financially. Comment number 2 says, "Not the a-hole, repeat after me or face a lifetime of this BS over and over again. I'm old and I learned the hard way that leeches only ever demand more and more and come to feel entitled to and resent your success no matter how much money you give them. You should say, we each got the same amount of money. You both made the adult decisions to spend your share, I kept my share invested wisely. No one is entitled to the proceeds of my investments, just like I'm not entitled to a third of your boat or your luxury car. The proceeds from my good financial choices will all go to my children, as I'm the adult responsible for their care. No one will take away 1 cent from my kids' college fund because other adults made poor financial decisions. We all started with the same amount of money. You could have all bought houses, stocks, etc. with your shares. You chose not to. No one else is responsible for your choices but you yourself. Moving forward, I don't expect this to be an issue ever again. The next time someone tells me that they are entitled to my children's money will be the last conversation I have with that person. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I'm a long-time lurker but never had the opportunity to post a story about an entitled Karen until now. So I went to the grocery store one night and during my shopping decided that I should go and buy some beers. It was a pretty empty shelf but I managed to grab the last 6-pack they had. Later, when I was checking out, I was chatting with the worker and talked to them about there basically being no beer and me finding it funny. Turns out they did not get their last shipment due to a truck problem. This story is about a Karen though, so right behind me in line a woman perked up when hearing about the beer I had. "Karen, you're the one that took the last of the beer, right? Give it to me right now, I deserve it and you haven't bought it yet. That clearly means I can claim it for myself." Me, wow, you must think you're something special to try and force me to give you something like this. Maybe if you asked nicely I would have, but no way I'm going to do that now. Also, based on your glazed eyes, I would guess that you've had enough to drink. "Karen, F you, give me my beer or I'm gonna make your life miserable." Me, well, you're making my night miserable right now, so I guess mission accomplished for you. I finished paying and went out to my car to go home. If you cannot already tell, I don't like to put up with people's crap and call them out for it. On the way home, I notice a pretty fancy and expensive car following me. I only live about 5 minutes away, but I start making unneeded turns and going up and down every street. Sure enough, the car keeps following me and I find it very unnerving. I park my car in front of a random person's house and lock the doors. It's a well-lit area and I just want to take a minute and maybe call the police. Not even a minute after stopping does the person ram their car right into the back of mine. I jolt forward but luckily have my seatbelt on and don't get hurt. I look in the mirror and see Karen herself getting out of the car and walking over to me. Fear is gone and replaced with anger, and I also get out to see the damage and yell at her. The rear bumper is ruined, and just for reference, I don't have the nicest car, but it gets me where I need to go. Weirdly enough, she is the one screaming at me about the entire thing, despite the fact that my car was not moving and she was following me. Karen, look at my car, you're gonna pay me for this. And also give me that beer, maybe then I won't call the cops and have you arrested. Me, are you out of your mind? I'm not paying you a cent for the crash you caused. You are the one that crashed into my parked car. Karen, I'm calling the police. You have no idea who you are messing with. I'm a millionaire and they will believe me. She then actually does call the police, saying I smashed into her car and stole from her. When they arrive, they actually think my car is hers because it was clearly the one that got hit. She tells them that she wouldn't be caught dead in that piece of junk and points out her car, which has a broken front light from the impact. Officer, so you're saying he hit you? The damage does not really make sense if that's the story. Karen, well, he did. He was jealous of how much money I have and wanted to attack me. Then he stole beer from the trunk of my car. Officer, sir, did you take beer from her car? Me, officer, she followed me all the way from the grocery store. I bought the last of the beers and she started throwing a fit. Then she hit me with her car and called you up. I can show you my receipt for the beer in my car. The police didn't want to see it and were not buying a minute of her story. None of it made any sense anyway, and they were mainly going to do an incident report for me to send to my insurance company. They made sure to get her insurance information and give it to me for when I filed the claim for the repairs. She was yelling about wanting me to pay for her car repair in cash, and they told her that my insurance was not gonna cover it and I didn't have to give her anything. Due to the nature and seemingly fighting over beer, the police wanted to do a breathalyzer test on both of us. As I had not been drinking, I was fine taking one, and it came up that I didn't have anything in my system. Karen, on the other hand, started throwing a fit about it, saying that she was not gonna do a poor people's test. She supposedly made enough money to buy the department and they should just write in the notes that she was sober and take her word for it. They basically gave her the choice of doing the test and being let go if it was within the limit, or getting arrested and having to get tested at the station because they suspected she was drunk. She finally took the test and was well over the legal limit when it came to driving. They told her she was gonna be arrested and she did not take that news well. She ran over to my car and started punching and kicking it, screaming that it was my fault and taking steps towards me before police got her under control. I could hear her saying that the limit didn't apply to her and that they had to check their records to see who she was. She really felt the law when it came to drunk driving did not apply to her and I was still the one in the wrong. Once she was taken away, the rest of the police staggered away and I was left to drive home with my broken car and get it to the shop the next day. I was shaken up and ironically drank one of the beers this whole thing was about to calm my nerves. I'm a firm believer in not letting Karens get their way because it just encourages that kind of behavior in the world. I also believe though that if you are getting mugged to just give them the stuff because your life is more important. With this in mind though, if I was to go back knowing all of that would have happened, I think I would have just given drunk Karen the beer. I was without my car for 2 weeks and even though I did not have to pay, it was still an inconvenience. I'm curious to what you think about this situation. If you knew what would have happened, would you have kept the beer like I did or let the crazy Karen have it and avoid the car wreck? And yeah, Ripe Stars, I will relay this question to you. What would you have done in that situation? And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.